got addicted to heroin. I just want to send you to prison. No one's ever talked to me like that in my life. I got the gun and I went and robbed the drug dealer. I was basically dead when he found me.
Welcome to TOSA Stories. If you've been following us for a while, you might have noticed we do a lot of homeless coverage. And a lot of our stories are quite negative in terms of the failures of public housing. We ask the question, why is public housing such a failure? Why is permanent supportive housing, which sounds like such a great idea, such an abject failure? There's just one reason and one reason only. It's lack of personal accountability. The people in these units get in and it's almost impossible for them to be kicked out because their illness or their disability is drug addiction. So they won't be kicked out for using drugs. That's an incredible fact that we've stumbled upon that's not being reported by the local media, but there is a better way. There is a better solution. We've come across an organization called the Other Side Academy, which gives felons and convicts and drug dealers and drug users, all the people who often end up homeless, a second chance. They enroll in a program where they are held accountable, where they do work. They work for their room and board, and they spend a couple of years relearning the critical life skills that teach them how to be productive citizens. And unlike the government-funded programs, which have an abysmal success rate, the Other Side Academy has a 90% success rate. So we are super pleased to show to you these amazing vignettes of the success stories from the Other Side Academy, brought to you by our new sponsor of this program, the Other Side Academy.
I was in the gutter, overdosed, with people walking over my limp body. I shot up too much heroin, and I was basically dead when he found me. He threw me in the back of the car, and he rushed me to the hospital.
We're telling the stories of people who you don't hear about a lot in the media. And part of what we're doing from a new sponsor we have is the Other Side Academy, is we're showing you success stories of people who were absolutely down and out, living a criminal life or drug addicted or both. And today on the program with me, I'm very excited to have Dylan Gibson. And so give me a little rundown. So what was your childhood like that made you kind of, I guess you should say, get on the wrong path, and where you were, involved in sort of the criminal element of Salt Lake and Tooele?
So I think it'd be important to talk about the first memory of my childhood. So my parents were also struggling with addiction. My first memory was my dad putting my mom through a plate glass window at the age of 8 years old. And so we witnessed a lot of mental and physical and emotional abuse in the household. So I think it started there a little bit. About a year after that, we were getting mentored about mom and dad getting a divorce. And so there was this big, intervention in the living room. Grandma and Grandpa Gibson, Grandma and Grandpa Clem down there, kind of telling us that we're getting split up from each other. I remember my mom saying, I want to take Brandon and Dylan with me, which Brandon is my oldest brother, and then I'm the youngest. And so at that point, we got separated and split up. I think that had a lot to do with, how I reacted in school and didn't have the mentorship as I was growing up, making pretty bad decisions as I was a kid, making, decisions of like just acting out, not listening to my parents.
So your dad, was he violent, or he was also abusing drugs, or all of the above?
He wasn't violent towards us, but but we witnessed that to mom. So it was important that they got separated, and then it was also important that we needed to find some type of mentorship in the home. And so that's when Grandma and Grandpa Gibson and Grandma and Grandpa Clem came into the picture and kind of mentored us. As my mom and dad were struggling with their own struggles. My mom was a raging alcoholic, and then my dad was just losing to the tire business in Tooele due to cocaine use. So there was a lot of behavior behind the scenes. I learned about this later in life, but there was a lot of things happening behind the scenes that I didn't know about until later, which I think affected us kids a lot.
When did you first start dealing drugs?
So the first time I started dealing drugs was probably 13 to 14 years old. I started experiencing with drinking and smoking marijuana, and we were pretty poor. So I realized that if my brothers and I sold marijuana, we could get anything we wanted, which was our new clothes, vehicles, things like that. So we started selling drugs at a very young age.
And were you getting caught very often?
No, we didn't get caught. I grew up in a small town, Tooele. I did get caught for drinking at 14. That was my first charge. I was at a party, got caught for that, and then had to go through some juvenile things, which was just classes, and mom and dad had to show up to that, which they weren't too happy about. But it started at 14.
Hmm. And so at 14, you first got in trouble. When was the first time you went to prison?
The first time I went to prison was I was 27 years old. It was from dealing drugs and possessions, and so it was a long history of heroin use, opiate use, things like that.
Mhm.
And so I finally got caught and finally doing crime to get what I needed. Once I started to run out of money, and I started supplying my habit with criminal behavior and selling drugs. So
So your life was pretty chaotic, I'd assume.
chaotic, yeah.
And
We don't really talk about the good things that happen, because I think it's important that we talk about all the negative things that happen, because later on in my story, how I went through the whole person change process, which today I'm a different person than I was ever in my past.
well, when you were in that frame of mind and you were dealing drugs, using drugs, did you feel like you could see a way out, or were you even thinking like that at all, or you were just thinking day by day? What was that? What was your thought process?
Man, it was a crazy life. I mean, I just remember always like wondering where my life was going. There was, like I said, there was glimpses of good life there. I had a business. I took state in soccer. You know, there was things that happened in my life that wasn't all bad, but I was a very duplicitous person. So I could fit in with most people, and they would think I'm part of that group. I just always had that ability to do that. And so when I was dealing drugs, I was a drug dealer. When I was playing soccer, I was in that community. When I was wanting to be a jock, I was in that community. So I always was able to be kind of like a duplicitous person, not an honest person, right? And so fast forwarding to when I got addicted to heroin, you know, it was an accident that happened up on the mountain snowboarding. Went down this rail, injured my back. The doctor gave me Oxycontin, and for somebody like me that's been addicted to things my whole life, the Oxycontin turned to heroin really quick. You know, I started abusing it. I started to sell it. I started to do all these things, and then 2 years later, I'm addicted to heroin, losing everything that I've gained.
And that's age 27. You finally had to go to prison for.
So 24 was when I lost my business, when I started getting addicted to heroin. And so it took 2 years after that. I had a little bit of money compiled up from my business and in the bank and all these things. My dad left me some money when he passed away with my brother in a car wreck. And so I had a little bit of money, financial stability, but I didn't realize that addiction was so strong that once I ran out of the Oxycontin, I didn't realize what was happening to me physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so I started participating in heroin abuse. I was sick one day, and a guy gave me heroin and said, "This will solve your sickness. You won't be sick anymore." And that was the end. That was the beginning of the end for me. I took that dose of heroin. I sniffed it in my nose, and the next thing I know, I'm losing everything. A year later, I'm losing everything. I'm catching charges. I'm starting to go to prison. I'm starting to go to jail.
Wow. So just in the course of, what was that 1 year?
It was about a 1 year, maybe 2 years tops. I started to lose everything, and I started performing criminal activity. So,
And when you're in that mindset, you're just thinking about your next high. You're not thinking beyond the next day or the next high. Is that really how you?
it's kind of a crazy thing, because most people that get addicted to heroin, the one thing, there's like a 2-week period where it's like, I don't know, it's way good, right? But after that 2 weeks, all you're doing is trying to get better. I call it sick. You're trying to get well. All you're doing is fighting for your next fix to stay not sick. And so you're doing anything from, stealing from your parents, stealing from the grocery stores, robbing people, stealing cars, anything like that to get what you need.
And when you look out on the streets of Salt Lake and see all these homeless people, I know a lot of them have broken all those bridges with family.
Absolutely.
And they're just, no, I can't talk to my brother or my dad. There's just no bridges left.
Yeah, that's
Did-
that's
you-
the population that we live in. The population that I'm trying to help today is the population that are on the streets right now.
Yeah. Did you find, is that the situation you were in? You'd broken all the bridges with your family?
Yeah, there was only there was actually two people that, when I started going to prison, I've spent 9 years inside prison or jail, and then I've spent 9 years in my addiction, my heroin addiction. So that's a lot of broken relationships, a lot of people that didn't believe in me anymore. But the only one person stood by me, which was my grandma, that got me to got me to think right and got me to the Other Side Academy to start doing something different with my life. She was the last one there. Even though I stole from her and made false promises my whole life to her, towards the end there, she was the one that said, "Hey, you've got so much potential. You need to do something different with your life."
And she had heard about the Other Side Academy?
No, I told her about the Other Side Academy. So
Oh, really?
she researched it once I sent her the pamphlets. I was in jail one time and sent her the pamphlets of the Other Side Academy, and she researched it herself. And the reason she liked it is she comes from a background of Air Force. Like, my grandpa was Air Force, my dad was Air Force. And she says, if it's anything like boot camp, you need to go. I said, well, it kind of is. It's behavior boot camp. And so she talked me into it. I wasn't ready for it, but as she continued to mentor me and be there for me, it started to open up something in my heart to do something different with my life.
And so how did that go about? Did you get in trouble again after getting out of prison, where you had the opportunity to go there or go to prison, or how did it happen?
So I've been to jail or prison 52 times. I've done 3 prison terms, and the rest have been jail stays. So you can only imagine how many times I've felt hopeless, worthless, shamed myself, didn't think I was worth anything. One day I told my grandma, the reality of this is either I'm going to die, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison, or I'm going to be successful and make it out. And I told her I'm going to be the one that stays in prison the rest of his life, because that's just what I was used to. I can't believe them words came out of my mouth. When I say it, it's like talking about another person, but I said that to her. And so 52 times of not getting it right, going back and forth, not fixing the behaviors, not becoming a decent person, I just constantly went back. Every time I got out of prison, I was on my way back.
And so were you facing another prison term when you decided to sign up for Other Side Academy?
Oh yeah, I was in a lot of trouble. I was facing about 15 years with a record about this thick. And so the judge, when I went in front of the judge, she said, I'm going to send you to the Other Side Academy. I'm going to give you an opportunity to go to this place. Well, I had to write him a letter first. So I wrote him a letter. A gentleman came and interviewed me, saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Went through the interview process. I went back to my cell thinking, oh, I'm not going to go to that place. It's 30 months long. And then, of course, I reached out to grandma and everybody else that mentored me through that choice. But 2 weeks later, I got accepted. I got an acceptance letter. And I'm like, wow, so this is happening. This is going down. I'm going to the Other Side Academy. And so when I went in front of the judge, I had the acceptance letter. She's like, why would I send you to the Other Side Academy? Nothing else has worked for you. I just want to send you to prison. And I pled with my attorney, and I just said, look, have her give me one more chance. This is the last stop, last chance. And so she said, hey, I got your file. It's this thick. If you don't complete the Other Side Academy, I got you for a lot of years. And so I'm like, okay. And so about a month or 2 later, I was getting released to the Other Side Academy, and starting my new life process.
And the campus here in Salt Lake City on
Yep.
on First South is where you were. And so
I wasn't ready to come to the Other Side Academy. I'm going to tell you what, the easy thing for me to do was go to prison, because I've done so many years inside the walls. It was just comfortable. I was okay with going to prison for the rest of my life. I was okay with that. And so when I had the mentorship through one of my church leaders inside the jail, and then my grandma was saying, you got potential, you need to do something different with your life. I pulled that brochure out that I stuck in my locker for about 2 months, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. It's going to be way too long. I'm not getting better. I don't have the ability to become a decent person. And so, with that mentorship, I finally pulled that brochure back out and said, I'm going to do something different with my life. And I wrote the letter to the Other Side Academy.
And so if you hadn't completed the 2 years with Other Side Academy, if you would have bailed out, you would have faced going to prison for 15 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't have bailed out. She would have sent me to prison for 15 years.
Really?
Yeah, with my record. I'd still be in prison. I wouldn't be here right now.
I mean, it seems like an incredible opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because if you're going to spend 15 years in prison, when you get out, you're an older man.
Yeah.
And you have a chance to rebuild your life and have a second chance. But you looked at it like, nah, if I have to, I could spend the rest of my life in prison.
Yeah, that's where my mindset was at.
And
I was okay with that.
So when you started the program, was it right away you realized this is okay, I can do this, or did it take some time?
No, it took a lot of time because I was still broken, and I still carried the behaviors that I carried for so many years since I was 13. I was a very duplicitous kid, manipulator, liar, cheater, got what I wanted, faked it till I made it, and everything I did. Once I got to the academy, people started calling me on and calling me on stuff that I didn't know that I suffered from, like being a liar, being a manipulator.
So you just get called out constantly on your
getting called out. The worst call out was when I first got to the Other Side Academy. I'm sitting on the bench where you get accepted or waiting for your interview process, and Dave DeRocher, our director, came in, told me exactly who I was. No one's ever talked to me like that in my life. He actually told me, this is who you are, this is who you've been, this is what you struggle with, this is what you've done to the people in your life. All these things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no one's ever told me that. And so that opened up something in my heart to say, okay, I need to seriously take a look at what I'm doing right now.
Just being clear with what you've created and what your life has turned into.
Yeah, everybody enabled.
Nobody had ever told you that before.
No, everybody enabled me.
Well, so now you're in the program. At what point were you like, oh, this is actually working, I'm changing? Was that a year into it, 2 years? How long did that take?
Yeah, somewhere around about my 16-month mark. Somewhere about 16 months, I started becoming somebody different. I mean, through the process, you become somebody different. As I watch my students today, I see them, become different. They just can't see it in themselves. I can see it. So with me being there for 16 months, I couldn't see it in myself, but I was acting different. I was viewing things different. I was more empathetic. I started to have a mindset of, love and creating family, being there for people, consistency, commitment, all these different things that I never had, that I thought I had in my life, but I never did.
Did you start to appreciate the value of hard work?
Oh my gosh, yes. That's like the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought I was a good worker, but once I got to the Other Side Academy, you're expected to work. You're expected to show up for your family and your brothers and sisters and the organization. You have to, it's priority. That's where our therapy comes from, is from our work day.
Yeah, and I look at the success of the Other Side Academy, and I look at the failure of every government program, honestly. We were just talking about Odyssey House. I mean, it's a 90-day program. I'm sure they have the best of intentions, but 90 days, how do you know somebody's better? I mean, how do you know somebody's heart's changed or they're going to go out and be productive? Why does the Other Side Academy work so well without any government funding, and these other government-funded programs just don't seem to work at all?
Right. So I'm not going to bash any other program, but for somebody like me that's a criminal, that's experienced, the many years of addiction that I have, it doesn't take 30 to 60 or 90 days. That's just insane to think that you're going to change them behaviors in that long. So I needed something long in my face, something that was, productive, something that I could, look back and say that, look, I did this. 30, 60, 90-day models, I don't think work, because at day 90, you're not ready. They're going to kick you out because the government fund's there. And if the money isn't there, they're going to kick you out. You're not ready at 90 days. Nobody is. It takes a lot of time in order to go through the whole person change process. And so for me, it was like a year, like I said, 16 months before I even recognized that I'm becoming somebody different.
And so when you hit that 2-year mark, I mean, you'd think you'd just be doing cartwheels and I'm out of here, but you wanted to stay. So explain what
So
what
50% of my students right now, 50% of my students, when they get to graduation at 30 months, they're raising their hand and saying, "Can I stay an extra year?" I did the same thing. The reason is because we love who we're becoming. We have this new direction in our life. We have this new feeling in our life. We have this new purpose in our life. And so we're asking to stay because I'd be in prison right now. So I asked to stay just to give back to the organization that saved my life. So I'm saying, hey, let me stay for a third year just to give back to the younger students that are coming in so I can show them that it's possible.
Well, it's awesome what you're doing. And I mean, going to your job site today, you really can feel the spirit and the energy of a crew when they're working on a job by how much they look like they're into it. And your crew obviously look like they want to do a great job. They love what they're doing. So it's very cool to see that. So your job at the construction company, first of all, I guess give me how that construction company started and how you were able to kind of get it off the ground and your vision for it initially.
So when I first got to the Other Side Academy, I remember the construction department only having like a rusty toolbox and maybe one hammer, and it was just always, it wasn't anything, right? And so when I got I've been on construction my whole time at the Other Side Academy, which is 7.5 years. I had a vision about 2 years in that we would have a fleet of vehicles, we would have machines, we would have dump trailers, we'd have all these things and doing high end work. And that vision came true. Did I elaborate to other people about that vision? I just knew that, early in my stay that something like that would happen if I stayed with the Other Side Academy. And so Jordan and I, my general manager and myself, we had this vision. We've been working together for 7.5 years on creating these goals, and we've just been smashing goals. Our success rate through our work is just incredible. Like me and him work together so well. He's like the brains. He's like the brains, and I'm just kind of like the project manager that goes and makes sure everything's done right. But he is certainly a mastermind at the whole project.
So now you bid on residential and commercial projects anywhere from a few $1,000s up to $50,000-$100,000 jobs.
So we just did a $1.5 million donut shop that you guys were at the other day.
Oh, that
so we built that.
Wow.
So we do anything from usually about $5,000 to anywhere to up to $5 million.
Wow.
Project.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's magical, I think, because you see the guys on the streets. You could see that they have potential, but they're stuck. And they're stuck in this way of thinking mostly is that they cannot rise above what they're mired in, because what they're being told, and I keep hearing this over and over, is you just have to stay out here long enough and then you'll get to be in line for housing. And so they all say the same thing, or I'm waiting for housing. What do you say to these folks who are on the street who tell me over and over they're waiting for housing?
Quit waiting. You got to get your feet on the ground and start doing something with your life, because the longer you wait, the chances of you dying or not succeeding are greater every day. Quit waiting. Get up and do something with your life.
Yeah.
Start finding an avenue. If it's not the Other Side Academy, it can be anywhere else. You need to take a hold of your life and say, I need something different. A lot of these people on the streets are choosing to be homeless, just like I chose to be homeless. I was out there because I had no accountability. Nobody was telling me what to do. I could run and do whatever I wanted when I wanted, and that's the population that we're dealing with. People who choose to do drugs or choose to do these things and just stay out there on the streets because there's no accountability. I'm sensitive to the people that are actually homeless and from different things, from mental illness or things like that. I'm very sensitive to them people. But the people that are choosing to be homeless, like I did for many years I ran the streets because I chose to, because there was no accountability.
And you were able to just survive on the streets without a home. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And what was there some kind of thrill to that lifestyle?
I think there is. I think part of my thrill and part of my the reasons I was in the lifestyle was part of that thrill. Just kind of like that no accountability, just running place to place and just crime, this criminal mindset of just like, it was just kind of a weird thing, right? Yeah, I look back at that person, I'm like, that was really me, because that's not who's sitting here today. That's not who I am today, but that's who I was until I fixed it. So anybody on them streets can actually get up and fix their life. They just have to do the work. It takes a lot of work, though.
And I would imagine, like, the life you live now, you said, like I said, is it something like a monastic life? Are you cloistered in your apartment and you're all together and you're obviously have a purpose-driven life, but do you get a lot of joy outside of work with your current lifestyle?
Absolutely. You just have to balance it. I mean, I work a lot. All of us staff members live on site at the Other Side Academy just for the reason that we want to save as many lives as possible. But yeah, you just got to balance your life. I mean, it's a different type of life because I sacrifice my life for the academy and for the people that I work with and the people that I believe in. But yeah, I do so much fun stuff. I go on vacations, I golf, I go on hikes, I go on dates. I like to go to Real soccer games. I've been to like 5 concerts this month. There's like all these things that I love to do nowadays that I never did in my addiction or never did when I was a criminal, right? I didn't have the means to do it. I didn't have the mindset. So
Yeah.
now today I just balance my life in that way.
A funny thing is I've been to a few encampments where you talk to some people and they'll say, yeah, last night we were just partying really hard and now I'm a little hungover today. And I think the definition of fun and partying is, of course, like using drugs and substances. That's not a part of what you do at all anymore, right?
Absolutely not.
And nobody who's around you does no smoking cigarettes or even joints or anything like that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I'm not gonna judge anybody that drinks or that smokes cigarettes, but my circle of influence of people are the people that are gonna hold me accountable, one, and two, that are living productive lives. I hang out with people like you. I hang out with people like her. I hang out with people that are doing something with their life. Most of the world actually get up and go to work every day and take care of their families. My population somehow, some way, stopped learning how to do that a long time ago. And now we're just trying to teach them principles and morals to them each and every day. Now that I'm living proof, I went through the academy, I'm successful, I'm living a great life, and they see it. They see it every day that I'm living a wonderful life. So now they can either follow or they can choose to go back to the lifestyle. Most of them tend to follow.
I think that's amazing. And so it's like we've done stories about families sending their troubled teens or their troubled 20-year-olds to these extremely expensive rehab facilities all over the United States. And you guys are absolutely free because what you're doing goes right back into the program and gives those opportunities to more people.
Absolutely.
I mean, I kind of understand 30 months is a long commitment, but if you're going to completely transform your life and you've been in that merry-go-round of going to jail and getting out and going to jail and getting out, it's like, why wouldn't you do it? Like, who would you guys not accept?
So we don't accept people that are arsons for obvious reasons. We don't accept sex offenders. And we don't accept people who have dual diagnosis like schizophrenia or bipolar, but we do have a second organization, the Other Side Village, that will accept them type of people, the chronic homeless that suffer from, the bipolar, that need medication. So that's a separate entity, but we're the same entity, but that's a separate thing. But at the academy, we just don't accept them 3 things. But again, a lot of us have said that we have depression or anxiety, and I've told the therapist that over and over again through the years that I've been in jail and prison, just to get medications. Once I started living a clean life and telling the truth and just showing up and going to work, I didn't have them things anymore. I'm not depressed and I'm not anxious and I don't have anxiety and I don't have PTSD. I don't have any of them things. I have value and worth today. I have a purpose-driven life because I changed my life. I get up every day and I work very hard on who I want to become for the rest of my life.
Is there a religious or spiritual component to all of this?
We're faith friendly, so we believe or accept any faith.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any type of like church going on or anything like that, but we were definitely sensitive to people's faith and what their beliefs are. So.
And is there something like church services on Sundays or?
No, we don't have any of that. We have a non-denominational a guy that comes in and just teaches principles and morals, nothing religious though.
So tell me about the time you OD'd on drugs. Your brother saved your life.
So the last time that I was on the streets of Salt Lake City, I don't remember that day other than I robbed another drug dealer early in the day. I got a gun from another street punk, and I got the gun and I went and robbed the drug dealer. And fast forward about maybe 6 hours. It's kind of like, it's hard to put together, but this is the story that was told to me by my brother. I'm in the Rio Grande district. I just scored all that heroin. About 6 hours later, my brother had a premonition, lives in Tooele. He doesn't know where I'm at. He knows I'm on the streets of Salt Lake. That's it. So he has a premonition to come to Salt Lake for whatever reason to find me. His car automatically basically drove to me because he didn't know where I was. I didn't talk to him for months, but his car drove right to me. I was in the gutter, overdosed, with people walking over my limp body. I shot up too much heroin, and I was basically dead when he found me. He threw me in the back of the car, and he rushed me to the hospital. That moment, he caught some pictures. I have some pictures that I'll give to you. But he's the one that saved my life. He had that premonition to come and find his little brother. And it's a miracle because that was the last time I OD'd. And that was actually the reason that I wanted to get help. So I went to jail one more time after that. And that's when I wrote the letter to the Other Side Academy to get my wife together.
Wow. And your older brother, he had gotten sober just recently. Is that what had happened?
So he got sober 2 years before me. He did a 2-year stint in the Salt Lake County Jail in maximum security for beating up an officer. So that's what got him clean, and I'm grateful that that's what it took for him. He didn't have to go through any treatment or anything like that, but the 2 years in maximum security got him clean. So he decided to get his life together. He's raising his family in Tooele. But he heard that I was on the streets that day and just
had this feeling, strong feeling. God, that's amazing. That's
as everybody else walked over my dead body.
And you would have been dead had that
absolutely.
That's crazy. So you said you still have one brother who is still out living this sort of convict life and hasn't changed his life yet.
Yeah, so he's on the streets right now. He is choosing to use drugs, heroin, just pretty much anything. I've actually went inside the jail and tried to get him to come to the Other Side Academy, but he doesn't want help like that. I keep showing up to his court dates, and I think he's been arrested and put into jail 31 times. This last week, he just got arrested again, and I just, I know how my family felt when I was on the streets and when I was broken and hopeless. I understand how they felt about me now because that's how I feel about my brother. All I want him to do is get help. All I can do is keep being consistent with him and just showing up for him. Finding him. I see him sometimes on the streets and I'll just pull over and tell him I love him. I won't give him any money because I don't want to be the person that kills him. But I give him socks and things like that. And food and just tell him I love him. And that's all I can do is just be consistent. But until he's ready, I think everybody has their journey in life and their path. And hopefully it comes to an end here shortly. Hopefully I don't have to bury him, but hopefully he gets locked up or there's some accountability there to where he can start making some changes in his life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish you the best for him. You have two brothers? Is that
2 brothers? Yeah. I lost my oldest brother in a car wreck with my dad. They'd gotten a alcohol-related car wreck. My dad decided to drive drunk that night and killed him and himself in that wreck. I was 16 years old at the time.
Wow. Yeah. Man. Well, it's an amazing life you've had.
A lot of addiction, a lot of like really significant events that's happened in my life. But today I got to say, you know what, I'm going to show up differently and help people. Anybody can go through anything in life, but people can change too. I'm the example of a whole person change. The person I talk about in this podcast is not who I am today. Mm-hmm. I'm a totally different person.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. Thanks a lot, Dylan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.